Welcome to another week in Sunbelt Conference football. Scott, not a lot of competitive games this week, but I thought it was a fun week nevertheless. How you been?
I have been great. I enjoyed this week, even though it was not particularly uh, high pressure, I guess you could say. I mean, Thursday night's game was close, and then after that, all double-digit wins.
I was gonna say we could talk about Thursday night's game a little bit, Georgia Southern, South Alabama, but just going through it, Coastal, the darling of the Sun Belt Conference. I've already seen their Twitter account and their people over there start calling themselves America's team. Do we get a little bit of credit for this? Just like a little bit of a pat on the back, Scott, for being the first people outside of Coastal to kind of be like, hey, that team's pretty good?
I think we should. I think we absolutely should get a lot of credit for it. I mean, we called this a long time ago. We've been on the Coastal Carolina bandwagon for a long time.
I'm just waiting for them to send me swag. And then, of course, my beloved team ended up losing. Your team beat Arkansas State, which is a game we're going to have to talk about in a second. I'm going to say this. In the how panicked do I feel pretty fine with Texas State. The fan base, though, in San Marcos, I have not seen them this angry in a long time. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about Georgia Southern and South Alabama. Southern hosting out South Alabama. They end up beating the Jaguars 24-17. That pushes Georgia Southern to 2-2 in the conference. South Alabama now falls to 2-1. Scott, these are two teams very like-minded, I think, when it comes – or very like power ranked, I think, when it comes to it. I don't think I've put one ahead of the other one a lot in our power rankings. What'd you like out of that Thursday night game?
Not much. I thought it was boring. I almost fell asleep multiple times. I'm not very impressed with the Georgia Southern offense. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. I know a lot of Georgia Southern fans are very upset about it. They are producing a lot of very quick 3-and-outs, which is never something that you want to do. They're holding up well defensively. They've got a very strong front seven, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't put points on the board. And they came very, very, very close to losing a very important game to South Alabama because of that. I want to see more out of Shy Wertz, and he didn't really give that to us on Thursday.
Now, why do you think this game was so important? Because you mentioned it last week, and I didn't really push you too much on it. And then this week, you just said this was a big game for Georgia Southern. Why is it such a big game for them against South Alabama, do you think?
Well, they have been playing. This has been a common theme for us throughout the year. They have been playing to the exact level of their opponents. And so if they end up on the wrong side of one of these games where they lose to somebody they probably shouldn't lose to, that's going to be very bad. It's going to have a lot of negative effects throughout the program. So it's these games where they're playing very close to their opponents that they've got to win. So eventually they're going to have to win comfortably against a team that's not UMass.
Yeah, this is true. They did put 14 points up in the fourth quarter to really solidify that win. I think that has to be a silver lining, right? You score 14 in the back end of this game. I know one of those touchdowns was kind of a trash touchdown, but hey, it secured the win, and I think it covered the spread too.
I believe so. I want to say it did. The spread was close. It was closer than it felt like it should have been. I remember. I can't remember exactly what it was.
It's about 3.5, I think. All right, let's talk about Coastal Carolina. And I don't want to call anybody out. I'm not going to be the person to fire shots across the bow, but a lot of people thought Georgia State was going to give Coastal Carolina their first loss this season. Coastal came out and put a 51 burger and kept Georgia State scoreless. We talked about last week. Sunbelt Conference has a very tough track record with ranked teams. This week, ranked team goes into Georgia State and beats them. This has to be the biggest win of the season outside of that Power 5 Kansas win for Coastal, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they left no doubt, literally no doubt whatsoever. It was just a beat down from the beginning to the very end. It was incredible. Grayson McCall was a machine out there.
Is he the best quarterback in the Sunbelt Conference?
He is. He was number one in our midseason review, and I think he solidified that spot. He 18 for 24 I want to say 4 touchdowns. Him and Lane Hatcher, the only quarterbacks in the Sun Belt with that kind of game. And I don't know if you saw my tweet from earlier today. He's in some very good company, statistical-wise. He's got 15 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns this year. The only other 3 quarterbacks to do that so far is Trevor Lawrence, Sam Ehlinger, and Zach Wilson.
Oh, those are 3 Heisman candidates, Scott.
Those are 3 Heisman candidates.
That is very good company. I like that a lot. All right, so here's my deal with Coastal. This could have been a trap game for him. This could have been a game that caught him. I'm looking at the rest of the schedule, Scott, and if we played games on paper, this team goes undefeated, I think, at this point. Like, I'm looking at the way that the schedule lines up. I think this team could go undefeated, and I was looking at the teams ranked ahead of them. They're 15 right now. I think that there's a world where they can get into top 10, like number 10, but top 10 still. I think that there's a world where if the teams ahead of them kind of start falling off, anything can happen. And I am so impressed by this Carolina team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really important from that front is that the other Sun Belt teams continue to do well. And that what I'm saying is like App State and Louisiana cannot lose to anybody not named Coastal Carolina in order for the Shots to reach that point in the top 25.
Well, they continue to win. They're 15 right now. If they continue to win, I think they're going to get up there. I know on Twitter we already got some people saying the minute that this team loses a game, they're going to drop out of the top 25. I don't think that is the case, but still, very impressive showing for them this weekend.
It depends on who they lose to, honestly. I think that's the big thing. If you lose to App State, you're not falling out of the top 25. If you lose the conference championship game to Louisiana and you're number 12, number 13 of the country, you're not dropping out of the top 25 because chances are if Louisiana wins out to that point, they're in the top 25 too. They're 27th right now. So if you're 12 and you lose to 23, you don't drop out of the top 25. That doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely. All right, let's talk about your Troy Trojans. They go into Jonesboro and lay the smackdown on Arkansas State. At this point, Arkansas State's season, I don't want to be the person to be I don't think I'm the first person to say this. First off, I think it's a disappointing season for Arkansas State. I think that they really have disappointed the fan base, and I don't know if it's because of COVID. I don't know if it's because of just a mix of the deals. They losing to Troy, man. I know you're a big Troy guy. Kind of disappointing to me, especially at home.
Yeah, for sure. I think that their season is kind of done. I think it's over. I think that was the wrap right there on Saturday. I like how George Stoya's statement last week was kind of his parting gift to the Sun Belt, and it just crashed and burned on his last week, and I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, Arkansas State, I think they're done. I thought last season their fans thought it was a disappointment, and if they thought last year was disappointing, this year they're done.
I have been there for disappointment. I know what disappointment looks like. I do want to touch on the George Stoya thing. For those of people who are watching the podcast or listening and did not hear about this news, Stoya, arguably the most talented journalist to come through the Sun Belt Conference, didn't even last a full season. Moved to Denver, Colorado to cover the Broncos. I think that happens, later this week? I think this was his last week here. So yeah. Hats off to him. Congratulations. You got a little bit of Sun Belt football. I wish Arkansas State could have been better for you, but, good luck on your next adventure, George.
Absolutely. George was incredible. I applied for the job that he got, and when I saw him, and I was like, oh, yeah, I would not have done half as well as he's doing right now. So, yeah, congrats to George.
Well, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun for him. It's more fun for Troy. Let's talk about the team that won the game. What did you like out of the Trojans in this one where they go into Jonesboro and just smack Arkansas State?
They didn't turn the ball over, and they didn't let Jay Adams and Dahu Green go absolutely crazy. That's your 2 keys to the game, and they successfully completed both of them. Jacob Freed had a phenomenal game, just outstanding. 419 passing yards is the most yards thrown by a Troy quarterback in his first start at Troy. It's also the most yards a quarterback for Troy has thrown against Arkansas State ever. And he just went bonkers. He went absolutely insane. And then defensively, I was super impressed by how well Troy covered those receivers that I put 1 and 2 on our midseason review.
Well, you were wrong there because Jeremiah Haydell should have been too. But here's the deal for Arkansas State. I told you before, the 2-quarterback system does not work in college football. It does not work in the NFL. It does not work in Pee Wee football. You have to have one quarterback. You got to run with them. I think that this is the end of the 2-quarterback system at Arkansas State. I think from here on out, going into next season, I guarantee they just go with one guy as the starting quarterback. They don't play the starting relief pitcher type of thing again.
Honestly, I agree, because next season with a brand new head coach at the helm, it's probably going to be one quarterback that they're going to go with and one guy transferring out in August.
Yeah. It's disappointing. Like I said, I wanted Arkansas State to be better. I want the West to always be better than the East. It's difficult this year, though, especially with Coastal being so damn good and App State being so good. The East is always going to be super, super competitive. All right, let's talk about App State. They lay the smackdown on ULM. I still think it's a disappointment, though. App State shouldn't have given up any points to ULM. I thought they should have shut them out. Giving up 13 points kind of feels like your defense played down to their opponent a little bit. What do you think?
Well, 6 of those points came on like the last play of the game. So I'm going to give him a pass.
I want to play 4 quarters, Scott. I want you to play four quarters.
I'm giving the App State defense a pass.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because Colby Suits, he's the Sun Belt's leading passer, believe it or not, and he averaged 4.5 yards an attempt against App State's defense. So it was a good showing. And our guy, Zach Thomas, our guy, dual threat quarterback, Zach Thomas, averaging 10 yards a carry. Guy's a beast.
Oh, yeah. I watched Lamar Jackson on Sunday and say, Zach Thomas, that's the future of the position. No, okay, Zach is now coming around a little bit more. He started the season kind of slow. He's had 2 pretty good weeks. ULM is not something to hang your hat on, just in my opinion. ULM, are they the worst team in college football?
We ask ourselves this every other week. The answer is yes. Still, they're terrible. I mean, if you stretch UMass out over the amount of games that ULM is gonna play, it might be UMass. But for right now, it is the Monroe Warhawks.
Well, my pick to switch ULM out for Liberty is ranked in the top 25. Just saying, just reminding you that there are good teams around the country that would love to play in the Sun Belt.
Liberty will never be in the Sun Belt.
All right, let's talk about the tragedy that is the Texas State Bobcats, or according to ESPN, the best 1-6, now 1-7 team in the country. Look, Scott, I'm going to go on my little pedestal here, a little soapbox here for a second. I hate the commentators. The commentators that ESPN has given Texas State these past 6-7 weeks have been awful. Don't tell me about Brady's dad in the fourth quarter when Texas State's trying to mount a comeback. We don't care. Spaz family, great. Mention that when they play SMU in week 1. I don't need to hear it every single week. Give me something I don't know. The people that are tuning into this game, for the most part, either huge college football fans, ULL fans, or Texas State fans. And everybody knows the storylines. Tell me something that I don't know. And that was my big, huge announcer takeaway. And the takeaway from this game is that my boy Brady McBride probably won't start another game for the Bobcats. And that one hurt. That one hurt me a lot.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of this game, here and there. And every time I turned it on, McBride was missing somebody by about 5 or 10 yards completely. He just doesn't look very good. He's not very smart. He's not very accurate. He's not doing the things that he needs to. He's not getting better. He's not letting the quarterback guru him.
I see. Okay. And then the little bit that Texas State fans continue to put in my realm, right, is the thing that he's the best at. He is great value brand Johnny Manziel. I'm not asking him to make every single throw. If he wants to overthrow a receiver here and there, that's fine. The 3 interception thing, though, that's what broke us early. You give ULL 14 points just to hand 14 points to them and then score 21 unanswered and then still end up losing by 10. There are problems there. And immediately pretty much immediately after this game, I got a notification on my phone. The notification you don't want to ever get as a Texas State fan. Notification of a new Twitter account that just followed you. When's the last time Texas State was over 500? Scott, it has been over 2,000 days since Texas State football was over 500 in conference play. Like, that is crazy. That is forever. It just is. It's a mess. It is a mess. You got the best receiver in Haydel. It's a pain. Yeah, don't roll your eyes because it's true. Jeremiah Haydel, pound for pound, one of the, if not the most talented wide receiver in the Sun Belt Conference.
I can agree. I won't disagree with you. Haydel is obviously a great talent. He's number 10 on our midseason list. The thing is, in the Sun Belt, year after year after year, there are so many great wide receivers that come in and out of this league. So it's just so hard to move up that list.
That's fair. That is fair. For ULL, did you like anything out of these guys from what you saw?
I like Levi Lewis. I thought he finally did some things that I have been asking out of him, asking to see from him all year long, which is throw the ball really far down the field and see what happens. He's got good receivers. He averaged 10.5 yards an attempt this game. This is something that we really needed to see out of Lewis, and I hope that he carries that forward. And it's not like he did it against a garbage secondary too. I mean, against Morris and the crew, it's not ULM.
No, that's fair.
No.
That is fair. Here's the deal, though, with Texas State's defense. Brian London graduates, and now I think Morris is the defensive identity of the team. I think that's the player Sunbelt fans would know, Agent Zero. He's really good. This defense is not really good. This defense is very average at best. And a little bit of nepotism maybe. Zach Spavital being the DC, but, he's not bad. He's not a bad DC. The defense just isn't very good, in my opinion.
It's one of those weird things where there's star players in a couple of spots, and then there's just a big drop-off. It's a very similar thing to what Arkansas State's got going on. They've got two very good players, and then just a massive drop-off.
All right, let's talk about this week of games. ULL fans, you gained an hour of sleep, but you still have to wake up early to watch your team get beat by Georgia State. Arkansas State playing Lafayette. Troy going to Georgia Southern. App State coming to San Marcos, Texas. And South Alabama and Coastal. Out of these games, Scott, we're going to go through the list, but out of these games, I'm going to highlight Troy and Georgia Southern as the game of the week. Noon kickoff. I think that is the Sun Belt game of the week. What do you think?
I think so, just because so far we have not seen Georgia Southern play a game that wasn't close. And in a race like the Sun Belt East, where, it's not like the political primaries where, if it's a close game, you get some of the votes. All you have to do is one by one, you get everything. So this is a big game with Troy and Georgia Southern. Somebody has to win, and somebody's going to get a leg up on that third place spot in the East, where they hope that App State, Coastal Carolina, somebody takes a couple tumbles.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with ULM and Georgia State. This spread for this one is 18 in Georgia State's favor. Look, we do the pick 'em every week, Scott, the against the spread. I'm leaning towards ULM in this one just off the gut because 18 points is a lot to cover, and they put 13 on App State, even though one of those was a trash touchdown. I'm looking at it. I think Georgia State's the much better team, but are they going to put up points, or are they going to let the dogs out in the second half and just kind of coast?
I don't think that they're going to put up enough points right away to just coast the rest of the way, but they are going to score. They are going to score. They got popped in the mouth on Saturday by Coastal Carolina, by a defense they haven't seen all year long. So that's totally excusable. But I think this Saturday they're going to bring it back around, and they're going to get their points.
All right, so I don't want to talk about ULM any more than we have to. Arkansas State in Louisiana. UL opens up as a 14-point favorite against Arkansas State. This is another one. Arkansas State's not terrible. They're not bad. They're just disappointing. And I think that spread's going to move a little bit, I think. What are your immediate reactions from this game coming up?
Sadness, I think, is the main thing, because this used to be the game of the Sun Belt West. This was it. This is where the game was, that the whole division was decided right here with this game. Now you look at it and you think, well, if Louisiana wins and they cover the spread, it's over. We'll gift wrap it. Louisiana, congrats, you're going to the Sun Belt Championship game.
Mm-hmm. Can Arkansas State do anything against ULL? Like, do you expect them to beat Louisiana? Is there a world where that can happen?
Yeah, it's called COVID. Levi Lewis out. Elijah Mitchell out. AJ Washington out. All these guys they're just not playing. Then Arkansas State sneaks one out.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the game of the week. Troy, Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern coming in after a win. Troy coming in after a win. A rarity for Troy. They opened up as a 3-point favorite on the road. I'm liking Troy in this one, Scott. I know you have your Troy underwear on. How you feeling about it?
A little so, especially with the likelihood that Gunnar Watson's still probably not going to play in this one. But if Jacob Freed comes out and does the exact same thing that he did on Saturday, then Troy has this. It's a Troy win, but you just never know. You really never know in this league, and against Georgia Southern of all teams, things are going to get weird.
You think so? I don't know. Is it going to get funky?
It will get funky. It got funky against Coastal Carolina. It got funky against Louisiana with Georgia Southern. You never know with this team.
All right. So App State and Texas State. Texas State opens up as a 17.5-point underdog at home. I don't know, man. It's a painful season for the Bobcats. I don't think they get another win. I think that they're a one in whatever team going into Spav's third year. COVID, maybe. I don't know. They're in the same category as ULM in the, do I really have to talk about this team at this point? Like, it is kind of that tough now.
It's rough for sure. What I'm worried about is a bottoming out situation where Texas State just kind of gives up altogether and falls apart throughout the rest of the season. But I'm really hoping that doesn't happen.
That would hurt my feelings. I don't think that they will, but I do think Vitt does get a play. I think that he does start or play significant snaps in the App State game just because of how, I don't know, the fans in Texas State are weird. I agree with them 99% of the time. I'm more of a Brady McBride guy, but Vitt is going to get some plays in this one, especially – I know you disagree with me, but I think they could have beat ULL. I think there's a world where that happens, that you score 21 unanswered and you keep that momentum going and you etch out a win at home, But losing that one, I think, hurts Texas State more than probably any other loss outside of the Boston College loss, where it was a field goal.
Well, before the game, I probably wouldn't have thought that there was a world where Texas State would have won that game. But in hindsight, obviously there was. If you don't turn the ball over, you probably do win.
Yeah. All right, last game. South Alabama, Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina opens up as a 17-point favorite. Another one of these where it's like, are all of these lines just really long? Like, are all of these spreads super huge this week to try to catch me? I don't know. Like, I think Coastal 1,000% could beat South Alabama. They could shut them out the way that defense played last week. But there's also a world where South Alabama keeps this one close. What are your thoughts?
RIP South Alabama. Is going to be the Coastal show. It's going to be the Grayson McCall show. It's going to be nasty.
Do we love all of the media hype around Coastal? Like, is the bandwagon big enough for everybody?
We do love. And honestly, I don't think the bandwagon is big enough. There's not enough people on it right now. There needs to be more people on it.
You want more people on it? Well, they claim that they're America's team. So
I think so. I think we should ride with it. I think we should.
I'm riding with this team until the wheels fall off. And I don't think they're going to fall off anytime soon. So, but yeah, you heard me. Yeah, you heard that right. The minute the things start going wrong, I'm off. So right now it looks very good. Feels very good to be on this bandwagon.
I'm here for a while. Honestly, that does bring up the question that I've been thinking about for a while, is just how sustainable this whole Coastal Carolina thing will be as far as future seasons go. If this is a one-time thing or if we're looking at the new App State.
So, okay, immediately I say this is a one-year thing. And here's why. That offensive line has been underrated for Coastal. Like, I know we talk about it every week. We talk about how much we love him and stuff like that. But that offensive line, if you watch these games, has really got a good push. A lot of those dudes were undersized. A lot of those dudes were under-recruited. And a lot of those dudes have a big chip on their shoulder because ever since Coastal came in the league, they've always been the kicking dummy. You know, like for the longest time, it was ULM, Texas State, and Coastal. And I could count on one of those three teams to lose any given week, right? And I'm looking at Coastal now, and a lot of those dudes are on that team that came into the Sun Belt Conference. A lot of those dudes were redshirted. They came into the FBS and got beaten down. So it's going to be tough, I think, coming years to have those guys have that same type of chip on their shoulder. What do you think?
My thoughts are almost exactly in line with what you're thinking. The defense, it's almost like a baseball team's homegrown talent. All these guys came up together at the exact same time. And, you know, there have been issues like last year. There were injuries with Silas Kelly being out. Jeffrey Gunter transferred out for 1 year, then came back. And so it was just all kinds of pieces that were missing, pieces to the puzzle that weren't there. And then this year, it all came together. And then Grayson McCall was like that final laminate over the puzzle, and it was there perfectly. But now you've got to find out whether you're recruiting and whether you are developing correctly, because you have to keep this going somehow. You
And the
can't
other,
go, okay, here's the next group of defenders right here. They're all freshmen. We're going to go back to 5 and 7. You've got to build these guys up and be ready to play next year.
and the toughest thing is always in the Sun Belt Conference is always going to be the revolving door of coaches, where you're going to get a new head coach every 2 or 3 years. You're always going to get a new DC, a new OC. Different players are, because of transfer portal, different players are going to come in and out. It's going to be frustrating, and that's why, again, I hate to always bring this back to Texas State, but as a Texas State fan, it's really exciting as just a football fan to watch Coastal. Like, I love Coastal. Week 1, we were on Coastal. But as a Texas State fan, it's frustrating because I look at Coastal Carolina as the blueprint, and I'm like, why can't my team do that? And if I'm a ULM fan this year or an Arkansas State fan this year, I'm looking at Coastal saying, why can't we do that in the next 3 or 4 years? Like, what is preventing us from being Coastal in 4 years or 5 years? And for a lot of these teams, it's not a lot. Like, it's just an athletic administration buying in. It's just getting the right coach. Like, Coastal has the right guys. They have the right chemistry. They have the right front office and the right AD. And I don't think a lot of the conferences or teams in this conference have that. And just in my opinion, I just don't think they do.
You're probably right. I mean, Jamie Chadwell's a guy that's been around the program for longer than he's been the head coach. So he knows Coastal Carolina. It's everything just come together. It's a perfect storm kind of situation in Coastal, I think.
And I'll say this, the Chanticleers win, lose, or draw in this conference, if they end up losing a game, say they lose the conference championship or they lose a game before then, they are still going to be the winner out of this year. Like, there's probably 4 or 5 winners in college football this year. It's going to be the national champion. It's going to be teams that got everything together and were able to play games. Coastal Carolina is undoubtedly the winner of this 2020 football season. Like, no matter how the rest of the season goes, them being this high at any point is just incredible. Just an amazing story.
Absolutely. It's been a banner year for the Sun Belt altogether, too.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. The exposure is big. The money, the windfall from a money standpoint is going to be incredible at the end of this year. I bet you the Sun Belt is going to bring in something that they have never brought in before.
So the TV stuff's good too. Before we go, I do want to point out one last thing. So we've seen it a lot on Twitter talking about Coastal, and because we said in the last episode, UCF was the martyr for Cincinnati, for Coastal Carolina, for App State. And a lot of people were mad about that. Or not mad about that, but they had thoughts, and they wanted to say that there was other teams in the Sun Belt Conference that blazed this path for Coastal. And I don't think so. And I don't think you do too. I think we both agree that isn't really the case.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I was in the very middle of that original ranked Troy movement of 2016. My thoughts were Troy should not be ranked until it beats App State. It went and beat App State and was immediately put in the top 25. You go and create your own ranking. Fan movement doesn't have a single thing to do with it. With App State, it was winning football games. It was beating teams over and over again and beating them by a wide margin. App State was just destroying people when it got ranked. So that's the only thing that matters, and Coastal Carolina has built everything it needed to build. It's a fun team that celebrates after games and gains a lot of attention through that. It's the team with the mullets. I mean, everybody loves that. And it's just creating your own attention and your own vibe and winning, backing that up by beating teams and destroying teams. That is why Coastal Carolina is number 15 in the country, not because Troy beat App State 28-24 in 2016.
I could not agree more. Scott, do we miss anything?
I don't think so.
All right. For Scott, for myself, tune in next week when we talk to you more about how Coastal Carolina might be the best team in college football. Scott, I'll talk to you next week.
All right, Andrew.